Welcome to the Microcast, the short-form podcast from Microcosm Coaching, where we break down the science, strategy, and psychology behind smarter endurance training. Each week, we tackle a key concept in running, training, or recovery, and we give you practical tools you can apply right away, whether you're building back, leveling up, or chasing down a big goal. We keep it short, evidence-based, and grounded in real coaching experience. No hype, no fluff, just actionable insights to help you train sustainably and perform at your best. Let's get into it.
2 weeks in a row.
2 weeks in a row.
We're almost consistent.
Consistency over intensity.
4 weeks is consistent.
4 weeks is consistent.
Can we string together?
Oh, we will. We have a plan. We have the Google Calendar is coming into play. I have several weeks of podcasts outlined with topics that I am deeply passionate about.
So this will not be, you're saying it, you're calling your shot.
I'm calling my shot.
This is not going to be the last podcast of 2025.
God, I hope not. I mean, it would take an act of God. If I get mowed down by a Tesla tomorrow, I'm not saying we're going to keep podcasting, but, barring divine intervention, we will continue to show up.
All right. I like it.
Calling my shot.
That's how we produce results.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully that's how we provide you guys with some good info to take into the next year. So what is this episode all about?
So this is like Zoe Christmas episode because we are talking about the 5 most important running studies of 2025. So this is really one of my favorite episodes of the year because I think that I want to give people a framework for how to think about science, because I get really frustrated by how some communicators, coaches, people online will take studies and represent or misrepresent them. And I know that our audience is really scientifically minded, really passionate about seeing where the evidence actually leads. But in order to do that, that sort of requires a mindset shift to be able to parse out the evidence. And so I just wanted to look at the studies that I think are the 5 most important and why.
Yes. And I love the framework that we're going to apply to this to help you guys understand.
To be smarter science consumers.
Yes.
Because I feel like the entire podcast industrial complex is built on the premise of there was this new study in PLOS and it's changing everything we know about threshold training. And no, it's not.
And we studied,
spoiler alert.
And we studied 6 elite male athletes.
6 elite men, all race walkers, very relevant.
Love those race walkers.
But before we get too deep into things, did I hear correctly that you have some roster spots open?
Yes.
Wow, what a natural...
I have one roster spot.
You have one roster spot
Not
open.
some, one.
One, exactly one.
Yeah, and, I hope, one, that if somebody out there is listening and wants to take their training to the next level in 2026, they'll reach out to me.
And I would also say, don't wait until 2026. I mean, this is something I posted on our social, and I emailed everyone on my roster, is if you're the kind of person who is going to get anywhere, you are not the kind of person who's going to wait until the new year to resolve to change.
Yes.
Change now. Change today. New Year's resolutions have a less than 9% success rate. Putting off starting something, you are not going to wake up on January 1 and be a new person. You are going to be the same person that you are now with more or less the same resources you have right now, which means that you are capable of committing to being the person you think you want to be in 2026 today. You were capable yesterday. So whatever it is, whether it's hiring a coach, committing to that running plan, committing to that strength training, committing to nailing your nutrition, to dialing in your sleep, you're not going to be a new person on January 1. You're going to be the same person. That's not a bad thing. That's a feature, not a bug. So commit to that thing that you think you want to commit to later. Commit right now.
Right. What is your vision? What do you want to accomplish in the next year? What do you want to accomplish in 2026? If you could do anything athletic oriented, running, skimo, I don't know, maybe you're doing a big through hike. I'm not sure what your goals are. We're not limited to just runners here on this podcast or a microcosm, but what is your big goal? If you could accomplish anything, if we could be having this conversation together a year from now and you could look back on a year of training and say, wow, through this training, I accomplished this amazing goal and I'm so proud of myself, or I learned these things. What would that be? What could help you ignite that process? That's what I like to dig into with athletes. That's what I'm looking to collaborate on in the coming year.
Yeah. So if you're looking to, I think we always say take it to the next level, but even if you're not like trying to make it like to totally rewrite the narrative, if you just want to be a little more intentional, if you know that what you're doing can't be done alone, or if you want to do it with a little more joy, a little more purpose, a little more science, TJ's your boy.
And I would challenge you, if you think the goals that you have set for 2026 don't require help,
too small.
Think about those goals.
They are too small.
Yeah.
You can do better.
Are they really that big?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's get into the podcast. Enough of that. We want to educate you guys. We want to help you guys in 2026.
Yes.
So here's one of the ways we can do it.
So I feel like as a coach, we've all had the experience of an athlete that comes to you and they're convinced that they need ketone supplements. They're convinced they need double threshold sessions and a portable lactate meter in order to improve their running. Their Instagram feed is full of these elite protocols, elite protocols, green supplements, massage doohickeys. They need to be spending all of this money and all of this time, but they're not sleeping 5 hours a night. They can't tell me what their RPE is. They freak out if they don't have their watch and their heart rate monitor for every run. They haven't strung together 3 consistent weeks of training in months. This person is chasing marginal gains before they've even built anything worth optimizing.
Right.
The exciting thing is that we are living in the golden age of running research. We have more studies, more data, and more access than ever. But most of what gets attention online is either outdated bro science or flashy interventions that are really designed for athletes who are running 120 miles a week at altitude or whatever. So today, our big goal is going to be filtering through the noise. So these are 5 studies from 2025 that actually matter for your training. When I say you, I mean the person that is listening to this podcast now, which is someone who is most likely an amateur athlete, not, competing in the elite field at the New York City Marathon.
Right.
And we want to give you a framework for deciding which quote unquote new science deserves attention and what is just an expensive and time-consuming distraction.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit here about the marginal gains trap before we dive too deep into those studies. So first things first, the problem with elite protocols. Let's get this out of the way. Elite athletes optimize everything because they've already mastered the fundamentals.
Right.
They have a rock solid foundation that everything else rests on. And because of that foundation, they need to find 1% improvements or 0.5% of an improvement wherever they can in order to win. That's the difference between gold and silver. These athletes are already sleeping 9 hours. They already know how to run easy. They're already fueling. They're already doing high carb fueling and fueling to their potential inside and outside runs. They already have a huge aerobic base because they've been doing this for, decades or more.
So for recreational athletes, if you think about it, that same 1% intervention, something that might make all the difference for Jacob Ingebrigtsen, might cost you the 20% gains that are low-hanging fruit sitting right in front of you, available to you now, mostly for free.
Right. And world champions aren't thinking as much about low-hanging fruit, but
all of us grab that up.
Right. All of us can.
Yes.
Like we legitimately can.
Correct. And again, like I said, you can't optimize what you haven't built. So I created something that I'm called the Should I Care framework. TJ, do you want to walk us through the Should I Care?
Yes. So 5 questions to ask before adopting any new intervention. Okay. First one, who was studied? Okay. Are we talking about studying elite athletes, untrained athletes? How similar are the subjects to who you are?
Because again, so many studies, like the one that I feel like with weighted vests, the one that like really took off and went as viral as a study that can be, showed that if you compare a group who wore weighted vests to an untrained population, you compare a group of people wearing weighted vests to a group of people not wearing weighted vests. Yeah, shocker, the weighted vest group improved slightly on a bunch of like kind of whatever measurements of like fitness and bone density compared to doing nothing. Like, is that supposed to be groundbreaking? No, right. Like that's not helpful. And it's important to recognize like there isn't a ton of science on the most specifically applicable population, which would be amateur runners, but are trained. So it's always like, well, let's acknowledge what the limitations of the study are. That doesn't mean just because it was studied in elites that we throw it out the window, or because it was in untrained people, we throw it out the window. It means we have to consider the full context of the story when we talk about it, if, and big if, we apply it.
Right. And I think that application process is the real key, which is why, we want to have these frameworks, and we're going to walk you guys through another kind of framework, or a way we can prioritize things in a bit that will also help kind of bring this to life. So the second part of the Should I Care framework is, what was the effect size? So, a significant 0.5% improvement really might not matter outside the lab, right?
Right.
Like for an elite athlete, an intervention that could give them a 1% improvement might be the difference between gold and silver at the Olympics. But when we're talking about kind of amateur athletes, or, maybe our trained but not elite group of folks, like a 0.5% improvement, is that really going to be worth chasing,
Right.
especially if it comes at the cost of our 20% gains? Are
Right.
we dialing in our foundation? So this, I think builds our framework, really builds on itself. Number 3, what's the opportunity cost?
Yes.
So that's where there's 1% gain. Is that better than, sacrificing 20% gains?
Because everything functions in terms of trade-offs, and
Right.
money you spend on a $500 massage gun, would it be better to get a new pair of shoes? Would it be better to, I feel like I constantly hear
Right.
athletes complain about how expensive gels are. That is money I am happy to spend. Like,
don't spoil our below studies here,
Yes.
Zoe, around fueling.
Yes. So what is the opportunity cost? Is this distracting you? And that's one of the reasons I get frustrated with the oh, well, if this recovery tool, it's not hurting. Well, there are trade-offs, and there
Right.
are opportunity costs. And maybe it's a trade-off that you're comfortable with making. That's fine. But let's be honest about the trade-offs that we are making.
Totally. I really think that's important, especially when we talk about the silver bullet industry and what we see on social media. Expensive toys that don't really create great outcomes often come with the cost of not hiring a coach, not hiring a PT, not replacing your shoes, not getting the gels and the fuel that you really need. What are we prioritizing here?
Yeah.
Let's rework that prioritization in order to support our long-term goals. So
Yep.
Number 4 here, have I mastered the prerequisites? Be honest about where you're at. Where is your foundation? If you want to know, call me, send me an email. We'll hop on, we'll do a consultation, and I'll let you know where your foundation is at. Sometimes it takes an outside perspective where you're at in this process. I just did a call like this earlier in the week with an athlete who was thinking about doing the Wasatch 100, and he's an athlete in his 60s. He wants to know, do I have the foundation to get this done? I've got 10 months to train for it. Okay, let's have an honest conversation about that. What are you already bringing to the table? What competencies do we need to build within that time period for you to be successful? Could you be successful? We need to have honest conversations about that if we actually want to learn, grow, and continue to get better year on year.
Yeah.
And I think lastly, number 5, who benefits financially? So follow the money in these situations. So for example, if you're going to spend money on a consultation with me or another coach,
consultation is free. The coaching is not.
Correct. So 30-minute consultation versus
opportunity cost of 30 minutes. So no free lunch, I guess.
No free lunch necessarily, but follow that money. Who's benefiting? Is it an influencer, or do you benefit from that money? Is that an investment in your future? There's a difference there, and it's really important to note that and be aware of that difference for yourself, because time, money spent, all of that matters.
Yeah, especially when so many athletes and influencers adopt this kind of bullshit posture of let me let you in on this great little secret about this random cherry juice supplement that has made all the difference. No. Fucking no.
Here's the secret, honey. That's not the secret.
The secret is
bullshit.
There is no secret. Yeah. Sorry.
All right.
I will try so hard to not swear in this episode, but I just feel extremely passionately about science and pseudoscience.
All right.
No guarantees.
The people want you to express yourself in whatever way feels
I
Good
don't
to
think that
you.
they do, but that's okay. That's a nice idea.
Well, that's the story I'm bringing to this
So
episode.
before we go into the 5 studies, I wanted to unpack
Yes.
2 case studies to look at how they fit into our should I give an F.
Perfect. All
Yeah.
right, let's get into these case studies.
So case study number 1, looking at ketone supplements. I know these are super buzzy online, and a 2025 systematic review, so a study of studies, looked at 12 studies involving 132 total runners. The finding across these 12 studies was 0 measurable performance benefits for recreational athletes. A McMaster University study actually found ketones may worsen performance by impairing the body's ability to use carbohydrates efficiently. So that was really only found in 1 study, but I think adds rich context to what we're talking about here. So let's look at the cost, the opportunity cost here.
Follow that
$30 to
money.
$50 a serving. The opportunity cost is that money could buy a month of quality, that could buy food, that could buy a protein supplement, like protein
Gels.
powder, that could buy gels. So ketone supplements, like thinking about how that fits into our framework, well, ketone industry definitely benefits. And I know supplement companies often like to use the phrasing of like, oh, we're not big pharma. The supplement industry is also an industry. That is bullshit. All of this is an industry. There's always
Yeah.
like, not to be overly cynical, but there's always someone that benefits. None of this is for free.
Coaching industrial
We do this
complex.
podcast because it helps us find clients, not out of the goodness of our hearts. I do like science and I like to yell at people about science.
You
but
like podcasting.
I do like
but there's a
podcasting.
purpose behind it.
There is a purpose. And if we can be transparent about that, ideally that helps us gain like real trust with our audience rather than like some bullshit pretending of like, again, we're not a charity, but we are also passionate about putting good, high quality information out in the world.
That's all part of the package.
Exactly. Case study number 2, Norwegian double threshold training. So this is something that's also extremely popular online.
Oh man, this has blown up over the last 2 or 3 years, I think. I really think since when were the Winter Olympics? How many years ago?
Oh yeah.
There are some case studies that came out following speed skaters.
Yes. So, well, this one is specifically looking at it in running.
Perfect.
So this protocol requires about 120 to 180 kilometers per week baseline.
Great.
That requires professional recovery capacity. And here's the part that no one talks about online. 80% of that training at a truly easy effort. In order for the Norwegian double threshold yada yada to work, you have to be so disciplined about keeping easy days easy. People always love to talk about and love to post about going hard. That only works if you go truly easy. So those sexy double threshold sessions are built on a foundation of years of easy aerobic development. So when recreational athletes try to copy the hard parts without the easy foundation, they get injured or they get overtrained. So again, like, does this make sense for what you have available and who you are now? Because I'm not saying, like, does Norwegian double threshold training work? Technically, yes, but for who? Right? Like, can you absorb the training? That's a big what if.
Well, and again, oh man, this is why this is the area that I love about coaching.
Yes.
Is that it's so individual.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are actually some amateurs who would really benefit from that for a variety of different reasons. The first one that I can think of is like, I'm not yet ready to handle all of this volume, intensity in my running.
Mm.
But from a time available perspective and when we talk about the foundation, my recovery, is great. I have ample time. I sleep really well. I'd love to get 2 sessions in a week threshold. That could help me grow a little bit faster. Okay, boom. Second session's on a bike.
Yeah.
Like, oh, wow, that's a really individualized approach to double threshold.
Right.
And there's other examples that I can pull from. So it really is about like, who is the person you're actually applying the intervention to?
So I also want to talk a little bit about the hierarchy of training priorities.
Yeah,
so
this is huge.
This is and I'll have you walk us through it, but this is like how you should think about prioritizing what matters in training and what matters less.
Yes. So, okay, this is going to be one of those opportunities for you guys, a pause and rewind moment. So
I have literally never done that in a podcast.
you don't do that?
No.
Oh my gosh.
Mine
No
like a
wonder you
steel
never
trap.
retain anything.
I have amazing retention. I got a perfect score on the reading comprehension ACT. Fact.
I love to pause and rewind and make sure that I've really kind of grasped a certain concept.
I assume that if it's important, my brain will remember.
That's a great assumption to have. If you're listening to this, don't assume that works for you. Find out what works for you. Okay. The pyramid of training priorities here, and this is like in order of importance. So the first thing is our foundation. This is level 1, consistency, sleep, basic nutrition.
Yep.
Okay.
Are you doing enough? Are you resting enough? Are you eating enough?
Yes.
If you can't confidently say hell yes to all 3 of those, do not pass go, do not collect $100.
Yeah, let's just stay here. Let's build that foundation. And then we can, build upon that foundation. Can't have that, rooftop patio overlooking the beautiful maroon bells if you don't have that foundation.
Yeah, can't put a hot tub on the patio if you haven't built the structure yet.
No, my toothpicks are not going to hold up
the hot tub time machine.
All right, level 2, structure. Polarized training intensity, periodized training, progressive overload.
Yes.
So
is your training on purpose, and does that structure make sense?
Yes.
If you can't say hell yes, again, return to start.
Right. And this is really important. Like once we've, we have that frequency down, we're feeling pretty good about our sleep, our nutrition's there. We want to really look to the ways in which we're distributing our intensity throughout the week. Do we have hard days? Do we have easy days? How frequently? Are we progressively overloading? Is our training getting harder as we go in order to continue to challenge us so we can still, have novel stress in which our body then is forced to adapt so we can get better? Level 3, this is our performance level. All right. This is a level that most people, I think, who are listening to this podcast are probably hoping
this
are
is where I would say
to.
Most of my athletes are.
Yeah, me too. Like we're really trying to find out how we can perform better. So strength training, race day fueling, race specificity, all of that kind of stuff lies in this performance category.
Yeah. So things that you do specifically for performance that, again, only have meaning because you're nailing all of the foundational elements.
That's right. Like everything is really resting on foundation and structure.
Like if you have your race day fueling dialed, but you don't have your daily nutrition dialed, congratulations, that makes no sense.
It's funny because it doesn't make sense, but yet how often do you see it?
All the time. Yeah,
exactly. Okay, and level 4, optimization. And this is, I think where people like long-term aspire to be, but they accidentally jump over structure. They accidentally jump over level 3 performance and they go right to optimization.
Yeah.
And this is where we have our altitude training camps, our heat training interventions and protocols, advanced supplements. We can only do this when we've really got the foundation, the structure, and our performance dialed. None of this has any value because this is all of our 1% gains or less.
This is like where you see athletes be like, you get a text in the middle of the night that's like, what do you think about creatine? And I'm like, why do you care what I think? You need to run more. Like, this is not creatine. There's no amount of creatine that will outweigh the fact that you don't consistently do strength training.
Right.
Dial in the foundation, then you can worry about like the creatine or the sauna protocol or the carbon-plated shoes.
So why are we giving you guys this pyramid of training priorities? Well, because our studies are going to cover the first 3 levels.
Because it's the boring stuff that actually works.
That's right.
So often what I see on social media and what I hear on other podcasts and stuff that lives in that 4th level that are little tweaks. And I'm not saying that's not relevant to anyone. I'm sure there are people that can be relevant to. You use a ketone supplement, I believe.
I do.
I'm trying to think of what I do. I do strength training. That's one of the necessities. I think I'm pretty firmly in like level 3. I'm really trying to manage
heat training at times.
I do heat training.
That's an optimization.
So that's an optimization. I do mental performance coaching, which optimization. Is
that performance? I could say that's performance too.
Yeah. So I'm technically internationally elite, and I cannot with all confidence say that I consistently live in level 4. I work a lot and have a sometimes stressful life, and always can spend more time on the foundation. So this is not a comparison game. This is an invitation to honestly assess your resources.
And I think, before we jump into the studies, I think what we learn from that is that even at an internationally elite level, those athletes are always working on foundation, structure, and performance. And there's not always a really sexy, emotionally uh, rich story that lies behind that.
Correct.
That's not the thing that's going to sell the next recovery tool, or quite honestly, sometimes it, may be counterintuitive to like being on here and advocating for, the coaching that we do with athletes.
Right.
Where is the story there? Oh, the story is in creating a structure and a system that supports you season over season so you can actually realize your results. And quite frankly, that's a counter narrative to what other people often suggest, which is like, do these 3 things and you're gonna, have a breakthrough. And
Right.
that's really not necessarily true.
And it's tough because all of the incentives of the attention economy are not good for good science communication. They're not good for like ethical, sustainable business practices, which is why we name all of our, sort of tongue in cheek, it's all like 5 things,
Right,
but like,
because it's a joke.
because it's a joke. And obviously there's more than 5 important studies. It's a framework for us to assess and prioritize things. But the truth is, like, in all honesty, there's, I guess, spoiler alert, nothing radically new. Very little, like, there are very few moments in exercise physiology where things take a dramatic leap forward, or where I see something that dramatically changes my praxis on a day-to-day basis.
Right. Yet there are folks out there who want to grab something that feels
Clickable and
and
interesting
very
and gets you to listen.
emotionally appealing. And unfortunately, leaning into those things may actually undermine your progress long term.
Yeah.
So let me jump in here with study 1, Zoe. I know you're anxious for this one, but this is my bread and butter.
Yes, actually, no, I picked this and thought of you.
Oh, sure.
This is like my version of romance, is like, this meta-analysis made me think of you.
I love this because it's all about polarized training and a meta-analysis about polarized training. And so what is this in its essence? Hard days hard, easy days easy. This is me doing my threshold work at 12% grade on the treadmill on Saturday, and then spending Saturday afternoon on the couch.
Yes.
Like, this is...
You live a very polarized life.
It's necessary. So, okay, here's the research. A sports medicine meta-analysis by Rosenblatt et al. 2025. We'll post this in the notes. Pooled data from 13 studies with 348 athletes, both recreational and competitive, which is really cool. Not just elites. And this is a lot of athletes.
Mm-hmm.
And multiple studies. Great. Love that. Comparing polarized training to other intensity distributions like pyramidal and threshold-based approaches. This is huge.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Interesting tidbits. And then I'll let you jump in, Zoe.
Yeah.
So here's the nuance. For VO2 max improvements, polarized training showed a small but significant advantage, but only in highly trained national level athletes. The effect size was modest, really, really modest.
Yeah, 0.46.
For recreational and like developing athletes, there was no real statistical difference between polarized and other approaches for VO2 max, time trials, or time to exhaustion. So the 2025 network meta-analysis actually found that recreational athletes might improve more with the pyramidal training approach. So we have a moderate intensity training, more zone 3. We're working on multiple different adaptation types at once. We're not necessarily glued to a hard days hard, easy days easy approach. Man.
Yes. Well, yes. So what polarized training is good for is consistently good for reducing fatigue, accumulation, and overtraining risk when volumes are high. Like, a lot of amateur athletes volumes aren't as high, so that risk calculation looks a little bit different. The big caveat here is that moderate training does need to be on purpose, and the big hurdle to clear with beginner or even more intermediate recreational athletes is making sure they're not like accidentally steady stating all the dang time,
Yeah.
which can definitely happen if you're doing like a lot of your runs in zone 3.
Well, oh man. Okay. I don't want to skip right over to practical application here, but I was going to ask you, well, I'll just tell you how this works with my athletes who
Yeah.
are more in this more recreational and developmental kind of phase.
Yeah.
To me, this means that we're not really glued as hard to RPE on our easy days. Like we don't have as much of an like a hard line
You're not an
between
RPE Nazi.
yeah, like between 4, 5, and 6 RPE. Everything zone 2 and below kind of goes.
Yeah.
We're working over time to have more of our recovery oriented days that stay in a 4 out of 10 RPE.
Yeah.
But it's okay if we're drifting.
Yeah.
And there's not going to be as much of a militant, do not go over this effort level on these days, because quite honestly, like one, that's very hard to adhere to for recreational athletes with the developing aerobic system. 2, sometimes when you're that new, you just need to spend more time running kind of faster to get that.
Right. Like, yes. Actually, can I share my polarization brag with you?
Yeah.
I was doing a threshold workout the other day, and I realized I had a 6-minute difference between my threshold pace and my recovery effort.
Wow.
It's huge.
That's big.
It's huge. I was like, this is amazing.
I love that.
100% confidence I took the recovery easy enough. 6 minutes.
Good for you.
Nearly twice as fast.
Yeah.
It's beautiful stuff.
That is amazing. Were you walking a little bit?
No, but it was a trot.
Trotting.
And for additional context, I was watching the new Disney Plus docuseries about Taylor Swift. So like I really needed a few minutes to like get my shit together and gather my thoughts. I was like straight up weeping on the treadmill.
I was gonna ask if you were crying.
I did cry. I got because it's so like they start the series off where she's like hugging her, and this is like honestly how I think about my athletes. I really related to this on a deep level. She's in the huddle with her athletes before their last performance, and she's talking about how she pictures them as kids and everything they've overcome to get there, every challenge they've navigated, every time someone said, stop doing this, it doesn't make sense, stop doing this, you're not good enough, stop doing this, you're not XYZ enough, and they kept showing up anyway because like I've been told to stop running. Like, why are you doing, like when I first started at NPR, I had a colleague be like, if you spent less time running, you could probably advance faster. You know, like I didn't make my high school cross country team. Like I've definitely had people say to my face, stop doing this. And I don't, fuck that.
Yeah.
We're
fuck
here.
That.
And
stay in it.
And maybe you'll end up on the Eras tour.
See where you might end up.
Yeah.
I guarantee if you stay in it long enough, you'll find, places that surprise you.
Yeah.
And that's really cool.
I loved that. So the grain of salt that I want to add to this polarization study is that the research suggests that if you're running like 30, 40 miles a week, kind of more, that's like intermediate. Would you say that's intermediate volume?
That's great.
Strict 80-20 polarization may not be magic. That doesn't mean it doesn't work. We're just saying it may not be magic. It's nuanced. What does matter? Not living in the gray zone. That moderate effort that feels productive, but in all honesty is blunting your adaptation. So for most recreational athletes, the issue typically isn't not enough polarization. It's that their easy days aren't easy enough. So fix that first.
Yes, I love that. Okay, lastly, remember that 80-20 rule.
Yep.
Even if you are a recreational developing athlete, that rule really does still apply. How we polarize that 80%, there might be some, nuance there. And likely the newer you are to running or endurance sports, the more nuance there's going to be. The better you get, the more, we need to kind of create some boundaries around that to ensure that you continue to progress. But that's kind of the cool thing about this. And what's really, to me, interesting about this study is we do see if you are a very well-trained, high-trained athlete, you're a national level elite, or you're aspiring to that level, polarized training does actually help you have better gains.
Yes, it does. 6 minutes.
All right, let's get into study number 2, strength training for running economy and durability.
I love this one. This is my love letter to myself. So last year, one of the things I'm most proud of is I got a strength training certification so I could be a strength coach, primarily for myself, because I'm like just really interested in learning about these things, and also to do programming for my athletes, because the further I progressed in my coaching career, the more I was like, oh my God, this is such an important part of training. And I became really fascinated with just how it works. So what we're going to talk about today is how strength work just isn't just about getting stronger. It's about staying efficient when tired, and what the research says about how we can achieve that with resistance training. So the research I'm citing here is from Zanini et al. From 2025.
I love this guy.
Zanini
or lady or whomever
this
they
person, this incredible scientist.
Great name.
Great name. Dr. Zanini. This was published in Medicine and Science in Sports and Exercise. Too many ampersands in your journal. Fix that. They ran a randomized controlled trial with 28 well-trained male runners, which means a VO2 max of approximately 58.6 milliliters per kilogram per minute, 10K times in the 39-minute zone. Half of them added strength training twice weekly for 10 weeks, half continued running only. So again, acknowledging some of the limitations here, because nary a female in this study.
No, it's just also pretty small study.
Pretty small, but I still think worth examining. Also because it's not a study that, spoiler alert, that doesn't purport to change everything we know. It fits into the context of things that we've already studied and analyzed in an important way. So some
absolutely.
tidbits that I think are worth talking about is that the protocol used maximal strength and plyometrics twice weekly for 10 weeks. The test they used to analyze progress was 90 minutes of running at heavy intensity, then a time-to-exhaustion effort at 95% VO2 max. Something you might note if you, like me, don't race 5Ks is that there might be limited application. Again, like there's some nuance here in like, what does this mean for 100s? Put a pin in that. Running economy at 90 minutes, the strength group improved 2.1%. Control group got 0.6% worse.
Ouch.
It's not amazing. Time to exhaustion after the 90-minute run. The strength group improved 35%, and the control group declined 8%.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So a separate sports medicine meta-analysis found that high-load strength and combined methods produce small to moderate improvements in running economy, while plyometrics work best at slower speeds. So I think all of that is really interesting. And, again, there's different reasons to do different things. I really like to include plyometrics for particularly aging female athletes to help with bone strength and bone health in certain contexts. Again, only in the presence of making sure all of those foundations are dialed.
Nice. Grain of salt here, grain of salt. So these are well-trained runners. A 39-minute 10K. It's pretty strong.
Pretty strong.
If you're running a 50-minute 10K, the transfer might be, even greater, because you have more room for neuromuscular adaptation. So greater running economy gains.
Yeah.
But here's the caveat. Submaximal load training and isometric training showed no improvement in running economy compared to controls.
Yeah.
And the type of strength training matters. It needs to be heavy loads or include plyometrics.
And when we say heavy loads, we don't mean you need one of the ginormous barbells. It just means like probably body weight strength is not going to get you all the way there.
How would you define that? My definition of that would be, 6 to 8 reps at 8 to 9 out of 10 RPE.
That's correct.
So, that's challenging work.
Yes, challenging work, but not, again, like it's not like you need one of the epic like weightlifting belts to do this.
I don't have to become an Olympic weightlifter.
You don't need to become an Olympic weightlifter.
To be an Olympic
Correct.
runner.
It just means you need to use some resistance.
Got it. Okay, got it.
So the practical application here that I like to see for athletes is 2 strength sessions per week, 2 to 30 minutes each, maybe a third, depending on where this athlete is at, time, bandwidth, injury history, maybe a fourth. The focus should be on single leg movements, hip stability, and posterior chain with actual load progression. You've probably noticed that I've been fleshing out slowly but surely our kettlebell collection with time. And actually, can I manifest we don't usually do Christmas gifts, but I think that we could get a new barbell for our household.
Do you want to race in Italy this year?
Yes, but I also want my economy to be good when I show up.
Gosh, we can discuss it. We can
Okay.
discuss it. I do think
You
that
heard
it
it
would be
here
helpful for
first.
me too to get some
Is it
more stuff.
really lame of me to bring this up in a public format? Absolutely. Will it work? Remains to be seen.
Putting me on that public.
Putting you on blast.
Wow,
Please, you
guys.
get me a barbell for
How
Christmas.
supportive is my husband?
So good. And another practical application here is include plyometrics, box jumps, bounds, single leg hops. It doesn't have to be this huge, like crazy complex routine. Pogo hops, slap.
Oh man, I love box jumps, squat jumps.
Yep, love squat jumps. I love
split
skater.
squat jumps.
Love split squats and skater jumps.
Getting into some
lateral movement,
downhill running strength work too. All right. Study number 3, the carbohydrate revolution. So here's the catch on this one. This is probably more about the fact that you're underfueling than you need to fuel more.
And the knowledge gap around fueling that many people have.
Exactly. And the issue here is that when we look at the studies, we know most people are underfueling.
Yeah.
So walk us through the study.
What we're looking at here, again, is a meta-analysis of multiple 2025 studies converged on the same finding. Recreational runners are dramatically underfueling. So a sports medicine open study of 160 Seville marathon runners found average intake of just 35 grams of carbohydrate an hour versus the 60 to 90 that's now recommended. A Dublin City University field study that actually weighed gels before an actual races, which I love, not just observational, we are weighing trash, found even worse. So like when they actually, because the Seville one was more self-reported, which tiny grain of salt. People probably aren't going to lie a ton about their carb intake, so I'm not willing to throw that totally out the window, but I do really like that these people were like genuinely weighing how much carbohydrate did you take in. So they weighed gels before and after races and found even worse that marathoners were averaging 22 grams of carbohydrates an hour.
Boy, so, that is not very much, guys.
Not enough. So let's get into the tidbits. So in that Seville study, runners who met the 60 to 90 gram per hour recommendation were significantly more likely to finish under 3 hours. So a p-value of 0.035. So I think significant enough to chat about. Here, I think one of the complexities to tease out is, again, causation and correlation. Fueling better will cause you to run better. However, runners who are already running well are likely to be highly correlated with people who know how to fuel correctly and are doing it. So
like they're already fueling well.
They're already fueling well. So like amateur runners who are potentially hindering themselves by not taking in enough fuel, also going to be less likely to know about how much fueling you need.
So let me jump in here with something that I thought was fascinating coming out of this study, and it's what predicted the underfueling.
Yes.
And one of the things that this study found was that poor sleep the night before and pre-race anxiety were predictors of underfueling. So our psychological state actually affected gut tolerance and decision-making during the race.
Yeah. And I think this is fascinating because typically, previously we've talked about how GI distress is the number one reason that runners report DNFing ultramarathons. GI symptoms didn't explain the gap in this study. Again, we're looking at marathoners here. Only 10% of runners reported GI symptoms. Again, looking at the Dublin City study, it found that marathoners actually consistently overestimated their intake. So they thought they were eating a lot more than they actually did. Cyclists in the same study were more accurate, which, like, if you know a cyclist, like, yes, those people, so dialed. Yeah. Shout out to our cyclists. You guys know exactly how much you're taking in. So what got left behind in these studies, it was the carbohydrate gels were the biggest unconsumed item. Runners brought them, but didn't eat them.
And I feel like it's for me, at least, it's interesting to cite that there may be a psychological element to that.
Yeah, I found that fascinating and not something I had previously considered.
Right. So like maybe I'm worried my gut is going to bother me, so I won't eat the gels. I have anxiety about that. Oh, I'm not eating. So then I don't actually get GI distress, but I run slower. So and it's like this kind of like domino effect that happens
or a self-fulfilling prophecy as well.
Exactly.
And I want to note that we always talk about the gut being super trainable. The brain is super trainable. The way those two things connect, super trainable. And if you find that stress, anxiety is consistently impeding your ability to fuel, that is something you need to address with a coach and a mental performance coach, because not a good reason to not eat.
Yeah. And so here I think is
and you can practice that. Practice your
well,
race day fueling. That will help make it easier that you can both be like, I am nervous about this race and I'm going to eat 60 grams of carbohydrate anyway.
well, and that's the way to work on this. And please, hit the search button. And we've talked about this on previous podcasts. I think one of the important things to note here, one of our grains of salt for amateur runners, is that there's a lot of talk about 120 grams of carbs an hour. I was just reading a couple days ago a study on 6 elite marathoners doing 120 grams of carbs an hour and all of the purported benefits of that.
Yes.
Great.
Typically,
but you know
those
what?
studies, again, I don't, unless it came out literally in the past couple months, I still think there's not a study primarily on, I don't even know if there's one that includes women. There's definitely not one primarily on women and high carb fueling approaches. There was a study that came out that looked at frame size impacting people's ability to consume more or less carbohydrates. And surprise, surprise, people with larger bodies are able to consume more carbohydrates.
Right. And also men are able to
Men tend to be the people with larger bodies. Yeah.
This was a study on men.
It was a roundabout study.
So anyways, if 120 grams of carbs an hour, that is a recommendation that, elite athletes who are running faster than 3-hour marathons are really considering.
Yeah.
And that is because they are running at a very high intensity.
Yeah.
And so they're burning a lot of carbohydrates.
Yes.
And it makes a lot of sense to try to get to that level. However, if you're running a 4:30 marathon, your carb oxidation rate is much lower. You don't need 120 grams of carbs an hour. But you probably do need a lot more than 22 grams an hour. And I think that's where we have to always go back to this range. Runners who meet 60 to 90 grams of carbs an hour, they tend to do significantly better than athletes who don't. And even 60 is excellent and is achievable for runners who work on it over time and put that time into gut training.
Yeah, but I think the meta point here is that if you think you're fueling well, you're probably still under fueling. Count your gels. I do this after every long
race.
run. I see how many are left in my vest and how, I keep the trash, so I can recycle it. Shout out TerraCycle. They will take your recycled gel packages. You can start it up at your local run store or just send it in individually. Count your gel wrappers. Grade yourself. Notice what you're eating, what you're not, and why, and how you feel. And communicate that to your coach.
Little practical application. Start with 60 grams of carbs an hour for efforts over 90 minutes. That's 2 gels per hour.
Mm-hmm.
You're running for 2 hours. How many gels is that, guys? That's 4 gels.
4 gels. Easy.
You're finishing that run with 4 gels in your pocket?
I did not get a perfect score on my ACT for math.
But you can determine whether you've had 4 gels in your 2-hour run or not.
Yeah, I hope so.
I think you can. Practice that over 2 to 4 weeks. If you practice that and you gradually increase that, you will be able to get in all of those carbohydrates each hour.
Yeah. So actually count what you consume. Don't estimate it. Write it on your hand if you have to.
All right. Number 4 here, sleep as injury prevention.
Love this. So we all know that recovery is where the adaptation happens and sleep is where recovery happens. So, this is research by Jong et al., also 2025, published in Applied Sciences, that surveyed 425 Dutch recreational runners, average age 25, average 45, average 12 years running experience, and used latent profile analysis to identify sleep patterns and predict injury. This one's really fun. So the tidbits that I pulled from this study is that 4 distinct sleep profiles emerged: steady sleepers, poor sleepers, efficient sleepers, and fragmented sleepers. So poor sleepers are folks with short duration, low quality, or more problems. And those folks were 1.78, basically 2 times more likely to report injuries, with a 68% probability of injury over 12 months.
Wow.
Yikes.
That's
Yikes.
huge.
Yeah. So it wasn't just duration of sleep, it was the combination of duration, quality, and sleep disorders. So assessing your sleep in a multidimensional way matters. So not just like if your aura ring gives you like a thumbs up, you slept for XYZ hours, the actual architecture of your sleep is really important too. A separate perspective study published by Goldberg et al. That followed 339 runners for 26 weeks found lower sleep quality specifically increased injury risk. So the hazard ratio there was 1.36. So again, bringing this into account because these studies align with other pre-existing research showing that less than 8 hours of sleep consistently results in somewhere on the order of 1.7 times an injury risk in athletes.
Man, we are hitting on that level 1 foundation right now.
Sleep. It's good.
Couple grains of salt here for our amateur runners. This was a cross-sectional self-reported study. So we can't prove sleep deprivation causes injuries.
Correct.
It's possible injuries disrupt sleep, or a third factor like stress affects both.
Like if you're not taking care of yourself and you're not sleeping, you also might be the kind of person who doesn't eat well and trains like a dumb maniac.
So
correlation.
I mean, right.
You might be dumb at multiple things. Usually dumb people are.
See level 1.
See level 1.
But the consistency across multiple studies is what is compelling here.
It's the pattern.
And unlike interventions that require money or specialized equipment, sleep is free. It's something that you can improve on if you focus on it. And the lead researchers on this, they quoted, sleep should be recognized not only as a recovery tool, but also as a potential predictor of injury vulnerability.
Yep.
And I think that's really important. And it's something that I think about with my athletes a lot, thanks to, integrations between Garmin and HRV for Training app or Oura Ring and other things with Training Peaks. If you have Training Peaks, your coach can see your sleep hours there if you are updating that information.
We're like Santa.
I like to look at that every once in a while. I'm like, that's you had 3 nights this week where you got less than 7 hours.
We know when you're awake.
How are you feeling?
We know if you've been bad or good. So sleep, for goodness sake.
Yeah, and quite honestly, those devices are really not good at understanding deep sleep and REM sleep. In those things, I would have athletes focus more on how do I feel?
Yes.
Do I feel recovered? Do I feel pretty fresh when I wake up and get going? Those factors are really important. That's kind of why I like the HRV for Training app, because you can self-report how you feel in many different ways rather than a Garmin will tell you or an Oura Ring will tell you how much you were sleeping and in what cycles. Honestly, that stuff is pretty inaccurate. So again, back to level 1, how do I feel? And continuing to build that out. So any practical application here?
Yeah, I would say target minimum 7 hours of sleep, 8 plus, ideally during heavy training blocks, and protect your sleep like it's a workout. It is more important than that extra easy run. So if you're choosing between an early morning run and adequate sleep, choose sleep, because piling exercise on top of a lack of sleep, you're not getting anything out of it. You're just increasing your injury risk. Prioritize the sleep first.
Agreed. All right, our last study, 5 for 5 here. Single session spikes in injury risk.
This one was the really fun, oh, this is new for me kind of one that I threw in. So what this looks at is assessing that it's not just total volume that gets runners hurt, it's how you distribute it. So the research here is Franson et al. From 2025, published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine, that tracked, love this, 5,205 runners for 18 months. Yas, Queen, using Garmin data. Okay, fine, sure, whatever. So, whatever, we'll take it.
I'll do some Garmin bashing.
Yeah, it works for this study, and you'll see why. Instead of looking at weekly mileage, they examined how single sessions compared to the longest run in the 30 days. So here's some tidbits from the study. The key metric was session-specific distance relative to your longest run in the past 30 days. So if there was a 10 to 30% spike over your recent longest run, they found that resulted in a 64% higher injury risk.
But that's huge.
That means going from a kind of long run to a very long run, as many people do when they try to panic train for an ultra or marathon. Not good.
Not good.
A 30 to 100% spike led to a 52% higher injury risk.
Boy.
A more than 100% spike, so like doubling your long run, going from, I guess, like 5 to 10, 10 to 20, resulted...
5 to a 10-hour long run?
Yes. 5 to a 10-hour long.
No, 5 mile to a 10 mile.
10 mile, yes. Not, did I say 10 hours? Don't
No,
do
I
a
was
10-hour long
I was just joking. You're like 5 to 10, 10 to 20.
If you're training for the
20-hour long
Barkley,
run.
if you're one of the 6 people training for the Barkley marathons and you're hammering out your 10-hour long run that will result in a 16 miles, you will have a 100, and this sounds like a joke statistic, this is a real statistic, that 100% spike results in a 128% higher injury risk.
Oh my gosh. I just need to keep these statistics like glued to my desk to give to athletes who I cross paths with who like are wondering why they keep getting hurt and
because they doubled their long run.
And they haven't signed up to work with the coach yet. It's just like, oh gosh, guys. This is one of the biggest mistakes. Also, if you're a self-trained athlete and you're listening to this, download Training Peaks.
Very helpful.
Like we don't get any money for advocating.
In fact,
for
we
them.
lose money to Training
Yeah, in
Peaks.
fact, we lose a lot of money every month to Training Peaks. But
thanks, guys.
But like one of the things I love about this app is you can track what your median long run distance is over various different training periods.
Yeah.
And you can even compare one year to another. So that's hugely important when we're looking at this kind of data, because if my foundation is, say, a 2-hour long run a week, or if you're a miles per week person, after listening to many episodes of this podcast, I'm going to ask you why you're still doing that. But if you
I always like I give examples in miles because it's how my brain thinks.
Oh my God. We got to work on that with time. If you are, it will do it in miles too, which is cool. You can look and see, where your long run progression is in comparison to your actual floor.
Right.
And you can also compare that to your floor in terms of time or mileage per week average total accumulated over certain periods of time. So you can kind of see where these spikes are. And it can really help you more accurately manage your progressive overload and your training.
Yeah. So at the end of the day here, the body does one of the takeaways here is the body responds to individual session stress more than just weekly averages. So being able to track that is important. And this is why, again, with a coach, it's important for us to always update, like, oh, someone misses a session, that has like a lot of downstream implications, and you have to constantly be retooling those things, which is another reason to not be like rigidly adherent to like a copy paste training plan.
Yeah.
So grain of salt for the amateur runners among us. This challenges some conventional wisdom. The ACWR, acute chronic workload ratio, has been heavily promoted in team sports, but this running specific study suggests it may not capture running injury risk as accurately. So the practical takeaway here, I think, is a bit clearer that doing a random 20 miler when your longest recent run was 12 miles is riskier than gradually building weekly mileage. So the 10% rule applied to single sessions might matter more than the 10% rule applied to weekly totals. However, this was overuse injuries. Traumatic injuries didn't show the same pattern. So a couple disclaimers there.
Like my face plant on my Sunday long run.
Correct.
That had nothing to do with my total mileage for the week. All right, let's get into a couple practical applications here. Increase the long run distance by no more than 10 to 15% compared to your recent longest. Sign up and get yourself Training Peaks and track your data, your historical data. It will help you so much with this.
Yep.
Avoid catch-up runs after missing training. If you're one of those athletes who is signed up for a race and did not hit all of your important benchmarks leading into that race, ask yourself, is doing this race going to create a situation where I have a 100% spike in my, long run distance? Is it going to create or a 10% or a 30% or somewhere in the middle? Well, that tells you all you need to know
Mhm.
and why it's so important to hit those benchmarks in your training along the way to that race, because now that race is going to be the thing
Yeah.
that gets you really hurt.
When I onboard athletes, one of the first questions I ask is, what is your average? Like, what is your most recent long run, average long run? Because that's such an important thing for us to
Right.
track and build on.
Where have you been over the last 6 to 8 weeks?
Yeah. So I wanted to close with a self-assessment for athletes before you potentially get lost going down a rabbit hole on the next game-changing creatine supplement, Athletic Greens, or elite Norwegian double Scandinavian triple quadruple sal-cal protocol.
Have you had Norwegian greens?
Oh my God. Can we start that company? That is so smart. It is double threshold Norwegian greens.
Yes.
They are a $100 green supplement designed specifically for people doing more training than they should be.
Absolutely. It's for your double thresholds.
So smart. Can they have ketones in it?
And
would. Bicarb. It's the YouTuber cocktail of bicarb, athletic greens, ketones, and maybe 1,000 milligrams of sodium.
Caffeine.
It definitely has caffeine, and what the hell? Creatine. Fuck it. Gosh, we're going to be bajillionaires. We can quit coaching tomorrow.
Maybe some
this is going to be our last podcast episode because TJ and I just had the best business idea ever.
We're looking for seed money.
So, yeah, you can invest in Norwegian greens. Get in on the ground floor today.
It's just $10 a month.
No, it's $100 a month. So the self-assessment is, number one, am I sleeping 7+ hours consistently? Not just weekends. Weeknights matter too. Number two, are my easy runs actually easy? Can I hold a conversation? Am I actively trying to hone my ability to get in touch with RPE? Is my heart rate or my RPE in zone 2? Yeah. Number three, am I doing 2 strength sessions per week with actual load progression? Big one. I keep making pregnant pauses, but I realize that doesn't really come through in an audio format. We are now doing video podcasts on Spotify.
Don't worry. You're subtweeting at me every time you say that, I think.
And that's how I know I'm getting a barbell for Christmas. If I do enough drive-by shootings of your persona, I will get what I want. Number 4, do I know, not estimate, but know how many grams of carbs I consume during long efforts? Actually, shout out to Microcosm community mentor Tom Ralph.
Ralph.
Sorry, Tom. He just invented this app that he shared with our community that allows you to log what you're eating on runs. So if you're someone that struggles to, I actually downloaded this and I'm really excited to use it for my long run this weekend.
You just click it.
Yeah.
And it logs it in and you get the whole analysis after.
And then you can copy and paste it into your training peaks for your coach. Huge fan of this. Thanks, Tom.
It's awesome.
I would recommend everyone check this out. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. Number 5, have I strung together 4+ consistent weeks of training? Again, you don't need a green supplement if you haven't been training consistently. You don't need to go into ketosis. You don't need to do ashwagandha yoga. You need to train more. Number 6, am I respecting my 30-day max distance when I'm planning long runs? Going from 10 to 20, not good. 128% injury risk. I literally thought I had made a typo when I wrote that down in my notes. Yeah. I was like, oh my God.
You went from a 5-hour run to a 10-hour run.
If you're I don't know what to tell. If you're doing a 10-hour long run, you're going to get hurt. That's going to feel bad.
I mean, it does undermine some. I think for me as a coach, that makes me really think about how important, if you're running hundreds, how important it is to have lead up races that are long. And to have boot camps and really long training runways.
Yes, long training runways. And again, it also, there is inherent risk in training.
Of course.
Running 100 miles, risky as hell.
But with good...
You can't totally eliminate risk. We are trying to minimize risk.
Yeah, but with a good runway and the right training approach, you can mitigate a lot of that risk.
You can. And again, it's thinking of it as I'm not running more than 30 miles. I think the max long run I did in my last build up, I did a 68-mile race. So typically when I'm training for a 100, I'm training an athlete, I like us to get an ultra in the buildup. So a 32-miler or a 50-miler. But again, there's still going to be a big jump from 50 miles to 100 miles.
Yeah.
There's that 100% increase.
50%.
No, that's a 100%.
Oh, excuse me.
You're doubling it. And so that's still an injury risk, but that's one injury risk. But if you're doing that, you if you're training poorly, you have the opportunity to introduce that 128% risk multiple times throughout your training. We don't want to be introducing that exact risk all the dang time
Right.
because we're still going to see it when it comes to that race stimulus. This analysis didn't look at ultra runners specifically, so that's another little wrinkle we can throw into it. But again, we're talking about minimizing risk, not getting our risk down to zero. You can't do that. You're alive on planet Earth, sweetie. It's going to hurt.
So if you answered no to this little self-assessment, am I sleeping well? Am I, keeping my long run progression 10%, et cetera? If you answered no to any of this, we need to continue to work on that level 1 priority. And, here's the big headline. You don't need marginal gains. You don't need ketones. You don't need Norwegian training.
You need Norwegian greens.
Yes, you do need Norwegian greens. But you don't need Norwegian training. Just the greens, though. It starts with the greens. You have to work on these fundamentals. And I know that's not sexy. I know there's not a cool, flashy story around that. That's not going to that makes it hard for me to sell my coaching, honestly.
Yeah, the secret is there is no secret. If you introduce any training stimulus, you'll get better. Rinse and repeat for 10 years.
If you do,
microcosm in a nutshell.
Right. If you do the real work and you have the environment that's conducive for that, and you work through the highs and lows and the obstacles, you will get better. You don't need to take a flashy supplement to do that, and that won't help you because we really need to work on the basics.
Yeah. So a note on the evidence quality from these studies that I'll put in the show notes. None of these studies are perfect. Most of them are observational or short-term interventions. The effect sizes are often small. Populations vary. That's science. But the consistency across multiple studies, the alignment with known physiological principles, and the low cost of implementation makes these specific studies worth attending to. So the standard for should I try this shouldn't be, is this proven beyond a doubt? We don't have that. The standard should be, is this plausible, low risk, and practically applicable given where I am right now and what my goals are? All 5 of these studies pass that test.
So here's my call to action for you. Pick one fundamental from today's conversation that you're not doing well, that you need to work on over the next year to reach your goals. Just one of them, and really commit to it.
What's yours?
Mine is more of a progressive overload with my strength.
I love that.
Yes.
Barbell.
I need heavier weights. Honestly, I'm too complacent with that. I could really work. I could do a lot with that. And that's exciting for me.
Yay.
All right. Commit to that. See where you're at in 4 weeks. Email me and let me know. I'd love to hear from you. Final thought. The goal is to train smarter, not just harder, and definitely not trendier.
Mm-hmm.
The body doesn't know miles, it knows stress, and the best runners are the ones who give their bodies exactly the stress they need to adapt, exactly the recovery they need to absorb it, and none of the expensive distractions that don't move the needle forward. If you master the basics, then and only then worry about the 1%.